The night sky was split by lightning, the kind that shook the bones of the little mountain town of Willow Creek. Rain hammered against rooftops, windows rattled in their frames, and the cold wind howled through the narrow streets. Inside a small wooden cabin on the edge of town, Daniel Hayes was trying to calm his daughter, Lily, who clung to him as thunder cracked again. He was a single father and 32, strong but tired, his hands rough from years of carpentry and his eyes shadowed by memories he rarely spoke of. His wife had passed away 4 years ago, leaving him to raise Lily alone. Since then, Daniel's world had shrunk to simple things: his workshop, his daughter's laughter, and the sound of rain on the old tin roof. Life had taught him to expect little and give much. That night, the storm wasn't just fierce, and it was cruel. Power lines were down, roads were blocked, and the world outside his window looked like a raging ocean. Daniel had just tucked Lily into bed with her favorite stuffed bear when he heard it. A faint sound beneath the roar of the storm. A horn, then a crash. His heart jolted. Without a thought, he grabbed his coat, flashlight, and ran out into the rain. The wind nearly knocked him over. But the sound came again, a car horn, desperate, dying. He followed the beam of his flashlight down the muddy path toward the main road, his boots sinking deep into the wet earth. Then he saw it, a silver SUV half buried in the ditch, headlights flickering weakly. He rushed closer, shielding his face from the rain, and saw the driver's door open slightly. A woman slumped against the seat, motionless. "Hey, can you hear me?" he shouted, pulling the door open. She stirred, her face pale, soaked hair clinging to her cheeks. I swerved," she gasped. A tree branch fell, her voice trembled. She looked exhausted, frightened, and expensive. Her clothes were high-end, the kind that didn't belong on dirt roads. "You can't stay out here," Daniel said. "My cabin's nearby. Come on." She hesitated, glancing around as if deciding whether to trust him, but the cold wind answered for her. He helped her out, steadying her against him as they stumbled back through the rain. Inside the cabin, the warmth hit them both like mercy. Daniel guided her toward the fire he'd kept alive, and Lily peeked out from her room, eyes wide. "Daddy, who's that?" she asked. "Someone who needs our help, sweetheart. Go back to bed." The woman stood awkwardly near the fire, dripping wet. "I'm Olivia Grant," she said finally, her voice soft but proud. "Thank you for helping me." Daniel nodded, tossing her a towel. Daniel Hayes, sit down before you freeze." As she dried off, he noticed the subtle signs, the polished nails, the designer coat, the way she carried herself. This wasn't some traveler. This woman came from a world far from muddy boots and wood stoves. "I'll fix you some tea," he said, moving to the kitchen. She smiled faintly. "You're very kind," he shrugged, just doing what anyone would do. But deep down, he knew not everyone would have gone out in that storm. He'd been alone long enough to know kindness was rare. When Olivia's phone finally powered back on, she sighed. "No signal, great." She glanced at the clock. "I was supposed to be in the city tonight. I have a major presentation tomorrow." "City's 2 hours away," Daniel said. "Road's probably washed out. You'll have to stay till morning." Her brows lifted. "Stay, I can't impose." He smiled slightly. "You can and you will. Storm's not asking for permission." As the night went on, the cabin seemed smaller, not from its size, but from the strange electricity between them. Lily had fallen asleep again, and Olivia sat near the fire watching the flames dance. "You live here alone?" she asked. "Just me and my girl," he said. "Been that way for a while." "It must be hard," she murmured. He shrugged. "Some days are harder than others. But she gives me purpose." Olivia nodded slowly. "You're lucky. I have a son, Evan. He's 5. He's staying with my sister tonight. I haven't seen him much lately. Work keeps me busy." Her eyes softened with guilt. "I tell myself I'm doing it for him, but sometimes I wonder if he'll understand that." Daniel looked at her, not the expensive clothes or the polished manners, but the woman underneath, the tired mother, the lonely heart. "Kids don't need much," he said quietly. "Just time, love, and to know you're there." She smiled, but her eyes glistened. "You make it sound simple. It is. We just complicate it." Outside, thunder rolled again, but softer now. Inside, there was warmth, the smell of tea, and something else, a feeling neither of them had expected. Two strangers from different worlds, sitting by the same fire, both carrying invisible wounds. Hours later, Olivia dozed off on the couch. Daniel covered her with a blanket and stood for a moment, watching her sleep. He didn't know why, but something about her stirred a tenderness he thought he'd buried with his past. He turned off the lamp and went to check on Lily. She was sleeping peacefully, clutching her bear. As Daniel looked at her, he whispered, "Life's funny, isn't it? Brings storms to wash away the things we cling to, and sometimes brings people who change everything." Morning came soft and golden, the storm's wrath replaced by sunlight spilling through wet leaves. Daniel stepped outside to assess the damage. Branches scattered mud everywhere. Olivia joined him, still in his old flannel shirt he'd lent her. She looked different, human. "I can't thank you enough," she said. "You saved me," he smiled. "You'd have done the same," she laughed lightly. "Honestly, I don't know if I would have gone out in a storm like that." "Then maybe that's why you ended up here," he said, "to learn what real help looks like." Before she could reply, her phone buzzed. Finally, Signal. She frowned at the flood of messages. "My assistant's been panicking," she said. "They think I'm missing." Daniel chuckled. "Well, you kinda were. I need to get back," she said. Suddenly all business again. "I have investors flying in today." He nodded. "Road's still bad, but I'll drive you to town once it clears." She hesitated, looking at him. "Thank you for everything. I won't forget it." When Daniel dropped her at the local diner later that afternoon, she turned to him. "I don't think I've ever met anyone like you, Daniel Hayes." "Just a man trying to raise his daughter right," he said. "That's more than most," she whispered. She handed him a business card. "If you ever come to the city, call me. Maybe I can return the favor." He looked at the card. Olivia Grant, CEO, Grant Designs. He smiled. "CEO, huh? Guess that explains the fancy car." She grinned. "Guilty. Well, Ms. CEO, next time maybe pick a better road." "Or maybe," she said softly, "the road picked me." As her car disappeared down the highway, Daniel stood there, card in hand, feeling something stir in his chest, something he hadn't felt in years, hope. He tucked the card in his pocket, not knowing that fate had just drawn the first line of a story neither of them could have imagined. That night, as he tucked Lily into bed, she asked, "Daddy, will the lady come back?" He smiled faintly. "I don't know, sweetheart. I hope she does." She looked lonely. He brushed her hair and whispered, maybe she just needed a place to feel safe. But as he sat by the fire later, staring into the flames, Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that the storm hadn't just brought her, it had changed something inside him, something that wouldn't go away. He didn't know that Olivia, driving back to the city, couldn't stop thinking about him either, about the warmth of his cabin, the simplicity of his world, and the way his daughter's laughter had filled the silence like sunlight after rain. For the first time in years, she questioned everything, the glass walls of her office, the endless meetings, the cold perfection she'd built around herself. She realized that maybe success wasn't about climbing higher. Maybe it was about coming home to something real, and as the city lights appeared ahead, she whispered to herself, "Thank you, Daniel Hayes." But fate wasn't done with them yet. The next time their paths would cross, it wouldn't be in a storm, it would be in an office boardroom where power, pride, and past debts would collide in a way that would test everything they thought they knew about life, love, and second chances. 2 weeks had passed since the storm, but for Daniel Hayes, the memory of that night still lingered like the scent of rain after a drought. Life had gone back to its usual rhythm: breakfast with Lily, long days in the workshop, quiet evenings by the fire. But sometimes, when the wind rustled through the trees or thunder rolled in the distance, he'd find himself glancing toward the road, wondering if that silver SUV would ever appear again. He didn't know why he cared. Maybe because for one night, the loneliness he'd grown used to had been broken by someone who understood it too, even if their worlds were miles apart. In the city, Olivia Grant's life moved faster than ever. The storm had taken her off the road, but something inside her had shifted. Meetings felt heavier now. Numbers on a screen didn't shine as bright. Her team noticed it too, their sharp, commanding CEO had started asking questions she never used to ask. "How are you all holding up? Are you getting time with your families?" They exchanged surprised glances, unsure how to respond. Even her son, Evan, noticed the change. "Mommy, you smile more," he said one morning. "Did something good happen?" She kissed his forehead and whispered, "Maybe it did, sweetheart." But the city was ruthless. Within days, Olivia found herself battling a new problem. A construction project had hit a wall. The company responsible for interior fittings had backed out, leaving her design firm stranded just weeks before launch. Her assistant Megan paced nervously as Olivia scanned the files. "We need someone reliable," Olivia said. "Someone local, affordable, and honest. I don't care if it's a small business, and we'll make it work." Megan frowned. "Local, in Willow Creek? That's not exactly a hub of contractors." Olivia hesitated, her mind flicking to a quiet cabin, a kind man, and the smell of wood smoke. "Actually," she said slowly, "I might know someone." 3 days later, Daniel was sanding down a pine table when his old landline rang. "Hayes Carpentry," he answered, brushing sawdust from his hands. A polished voice came through the crackle. "Mr. Hayes? This is Grant Designs. We're looking for a contractor to take on a high-profile project. Would you be available for a consultation tomorrow?" Daniel frowned. "Grant Designs? Never heard of..." Then it hit him. "Wait, Olivia Grant?" "Yes," the voice said. "Our CEO personally requested you." He blinked, stunned. "Well, I suppose I can make time." The next morning, Daniel drove into the city for the first time in years. His truck looked out of place among the sleek cars and glass towers. As he parked in front of Grant Designs, he took a deep breath. He wasn't sure what to expect. When the elevator doors opened, he stepped into a world of polished floors, hushed conversations, and women in suits clicking by in high heels. A receptionist smiled professionally. "Mr. Hayes? Ms. Grant is expecting you." He nodded, adjusting his flannel collar self-consciously. When Olivia stepped out of her office, it was like watching sunlight break through clouds. She wore a simple navy dress, her hair tied back, confidence radiating with every step. But when her eyes met his, the business facade softened instantly. "Daniel?" she said warmly. "You came." He smiled, rubbing the back of his neck. "I wasn't sure you'd remember me," she said, her eyes glinting. "Hard to forget a night like that," he replied. Inside her office, she laid out the project details. "We're redesigning the children's wing of the new Grant Medical Center," she explained. "I want it to feel warm, real wood, cozy tones, something human. Most companies give me plastic and shine. I want soul. I thought of you." Daniel looked over the plans, impressed. "You're serious about this?" "Completely," she said. "And I trust you." He chuckled softly. "That's dangerous, trusting a small-town carpenter." She smiled. Sometimes small towns build the strongest things. They worked side by side for weeks, their worlds colliding in ways neither had expected. Olivia would visit the site often, trading her heels for boots, rolling up her sleeves as Daniel guided her through sawdust and sketches. At first, the workers stared, their CEO in a construction zone. But she didn't care. She found peace there, and Daniel found himself laughing again, something he hadn't done freely in years. One afternoon, after the crew had left, they stood alone in the unfinished wing, sunlight streaming through the windows. Olivia traced her fingers along a wooden railing Daniel had crafted. "It's beautiful," she murmured. "You made this feel alive." He shrugged modestly. "Wood just needs patience. It tells you what it wants to be." She looked up at him, her eyes soft. "And what do you want to be, Daniel Hayes?" He hesitated, then said quietly, "A good father. Maybe a better man than I used to be." She smiled gently. "You already are." There was silence, the kind that holds more than words ever could. He looked at her, the city lights reflecting in her eyes, and for a moment the world felt still. But before anything could be said, her phone buzzed. She stepped aside to answer it, her face shifting as she listened. "What?" she said sharply. "No, we can't delay that shipment." She sighed heavily, hanging up. "Sorry," she muttered. "Crisis never waits," he smiled faintly. "Guess storms come in all forms, huh?" "Yes," she said softly. "But some storms bring blessings too." Over the next few weeks, something unspoken grew between them. Olivia started visiting Daniel's cabin again, often bringing Evan along to play with. Lily. The children bonded instantly, laughter echoing through the forest trails, filling spaces that had long been empty. Daniel and Olivia would watch them from the porch, coffee cups in hand, sharing stories about life, loss, and second chances. She learned about his wife, how he'd lost her to illness, how he'd nearly given up hope. He learned about her battles, the loneliness behind her success, the guilt of missing bedtime stories and birthdays. One evening, after the kids had fallen asleep on the couch, Olivia turned to him. "You ever think about starting over?" she asked. He looked at her, searching her face. "I tried once. Didn't go too well. What happened?" She was wonderful. But grief, it makes you afraid to love again. Afraid to lose again. Olivia nodded slowly. "I know that fear. But maybe love isn't about avoiding pain. Maybe it's about finding someone worth facing it with." Her words hit deeper than she knew. Daniel reached for her hand, and for a moment the world stopped spinning. But just as their fingers brushed, headlights flashed outside. A black car pulled up, sleek, expensive, and out of place. Olivia froze. "That's my board chairman," she whispered. "He wasn't supposed to be here." The door opened, and a tall man stepped out, his expression sharp. "Olivia," he said coldly. "So this is where you've been spending your weekends?" Daniel stepped forward. "You must be lost, friend." The man sneered. "I'm not your friend. I'm here to remind Ms. Grant of her responsibilities. The company's reputation is at stake." Olivia's face hardened. "This is none of your business. Richard, it becomes my business when the CEO of a multi-million-dollar firm is seen with a handyman in a cabin," he snapped. Daniel stiffened but stayed silent. Olivia's eyes blazed. "That handyman is the reason our hospital project is ahead of schedule." "Show some respect," Richard scoffed. "You're throwing everything away for this?" Daniel turned to Olivia, voice calm. "You don't have to defend me." She looked at him, torn. "But I want to," Richard smirked. "So it's true." He turned to leave. "The board will hear about this." When he was gone, the silence was heavy. Daniel spoke first. "You don't owe me anything, Olivia. You've got your world, and I've got mine." "Don't do that," she said sharply. "Don't shut me out because someone else doesn't approve." "It's not about him," he said quietly. "It's about reality. You're a CEO. I build tables. You belong up there. I belong here." Her eyes filled. "Don't you dare decide where I belong. Maybe for once I want something real." But Daniel stepped back, pain in his eyes. "I can't be the reason you lose what you built. You should go." She stared at him, tears glistening, then whispered, "Maybe one day, you'll realize that some things are worth losing." She left that night. Days turned into weeks. The project finished beautifully, but Daniel's heart felt hollow. Lily asked about Evan often, and Daniel could only say, "They're busy, sweetheart." Yet every evening, he found himself looking at the phone number on that business card, his thumb hovering out and pulling away. Then one morning, a black car pulled up outside his workshop again. He braced himself, expecting Richard, but it was Olivia. She stepped out wearing jeans and a soft smile. "I quit," she said simply. "What?" "The company. The meetings. The noise. I bought a house here. I'm starting a new branch, smaller, local. Something real." Daniel blinked. "You gave up everything?" She smiled through tears. "No, I finally found what everything meant." He didn't move at first. Then Lily ran out, yelling, "Miss Olivia!" Evan followed, laughing. The sight broke the last wall inside him. Daniel stepped forward, his voice rough. "You sure about this?" "I've never been more sure," she whispered. And when he finally pulled her into his arms, the wind whispered through the trees, not like a storm this time, but like peace. The kind that comes after too many lonely seasons. Months later, the new Grant and Hayes workshop opened in Willow Creek, half design studio, half carpentry shop. Their kids played in the back garden, and the sound of laughter filled the air. People said it was fate, others called it luck, but Daniel and Olivia knew better. It was grace. The storm that once tore their worlds apart had brought them together. One evening, as the sun set over the hills, Daniel looked at Olivia and said, "Funny thing about storms. They make you think the world's ending. But maybe it's just beginning again." She smiled, resting her head on his shoulder. "And maybe love isn't found in calm weather," she whispered. "It's found in the ones who walk with you through the rain." The camera fades slowly to the glowing cabin lights, the laughter of children echoing softly in the background, and the narrator's voice closes. Sometimes, the people meant to save us don't come with grand gestures or perfect timing. They come in the middle of our storms, when we least expect them but most need them. So if this story touched your heart, Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share, and because every storm has a story, and yours might just be the next one we tell.